Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being here. So if you are new to my channel, please consider hitting on the subscribe button and also turn on your notification bell to be the first to be updated when I upload a new video. Also, thank you all my returning subscribers for always coming back to watch my videos. I appreciate you all. So today's tutorial is going to be the drafting of a corset bustier, a strapless bustier or a tube top. And I'm going to be using these tools and fabric you see here. I'm using this beautiful African print for the corset top, and I'll be putting this aside and start with the pattern drafting, because the pattern drafting is going to be the part 1 of this video and the part 2 is going to be the sewing tutorial. So let me put the fabric aside. This is the fabric and this is the lining for it. So these are the tools you need. So if you want to learn how to draft this pattern, please keep on watching till the end of the video. So let's get started. So to draft this pattern, we'll be needing the following measurements. So let's get right into the video. So as you can see, I've marked a starting line on top of the pattern paper, and I folded the pattern paper in half. And I'm starting with the front pattern. So this line serves as our shoulder line and also our starting point. And on this line, we'll be marking our vertical measurements. And from the center of this pattern, we'll be marking our horizontal measurement. So let's get right into the measurements. So from our shoulder to the bust point is 12 inches. I mark it here, and I'm marking the 12 inches across. I draw a straight line. So from the shoulder to the under bust is 15.5 inches. And from the shoulder to the waist is 18 inches. Then from the shoulder to the length of our corset is 24 inches. So I'm adding 1.5 inch for the hemming allowance. So once again, we are creating a corset bustier, and it's going to be a tube top, that's strapless bustier. So we don't actually need the yoke, but in this case, I'm going to draft this pattern together with the yoke. In case you want to join yoke to your bodice, you can do so, or you want to use your tube top as it is okay. So let's get right with the measurement. So now we are going to impute our shoulder measurement divided by 2. The shoulder is 17 inches divided by 2 is 8.5 inches. And on this point, shoulder point, I come down 1 inch for the shoulder slope because our shoulders are not straight. Then I'm using the standard neckline, which is 3 inches by 3 inches. I mark. Then I connect the neckline with my curve. Then on this neckline point, I'll connect straight to meet the shoulder slope point. So what I'm going to do next is to create the armhole line. And to do that, you divide your bust measurement by 6, and whatever you will get, you add 1.5 inch to it. So by doing that, I got 8.5 inches. So I'm marking 8.5 inches for my armhole depth. Then I'm going to connect a straight line first from here to this point, from the shoulder slope to the 8.5 inch point. Then I connect the line here, which serves as my chest line and also known as the upper bust. So the next thing to do is to impute our bust measurement, which is my bust measurement is 43 inches divided by 4 is 10.75. So I mark 10.75 here. Then coming to the armhole line, I'm going to divide what I have here by 2. I have 8.5 inches divided by 2 is 4.2 inches. I mark, and on this 4.2 I come in by half an inch for the front armhole, because the front armhole is always deeper than the back armhole. So the next thing to do is to create the armhole curve. To do that, I take my straight ruler, I connect from the shoulder slope to this half-inch point with a straight ruler. Then I use the curved ruler to connect to the armhole. So to continue with this, I would like to label the lines: shoulder line, chest line or the upper bust line, bust point, under bust, waistline, length line, and then this is the hem line. So the next thing to do is to create our dart line, and in order to do that, you need your nipple to nipple measurement, which is also known as your bust span. So my nipple to nipple measurement is 9 inches. You divide it by 2, which is 4.5 inches. So on the bust line, I mark 4.5 inches, and on the under bust, I mark 4.5 inches. On the waistline, I mark 4.5 inches up to the hem line. Then I will draw a straight line. So the next thing to do is to come to the shoulder slope here, and then whatever you have here, which is 5.5 inches, you divide it by 2, which is 2.75. Then you connect from this point straight to the bust point. So the next thing to do is to create the radius for your cap, and to do that, you measure what you have from the bust point to the under bust, and in this case I have 3.5 inches. So I'm going to create a circle, that's the radius. You can use, if you have your compass, you can use it, but I don't have, so I'm using my free hand to do it. So guys, this is the circle. This is just a guide to create our caps for the corset. So now I'm going to be taking 1 inch on both sides of the dart line under the under bust line. So I'm going to mark 1 inch here, and then 1 inch on the other side of the line. Then on the waistline, I'll mark the same 1 inch on both sides of the dart line, and then on the hem line I mark the same 1 inch. So now I'm going to connect the line straight. So on this bust point, I'll be coming down by 0.75 here. So on this upper bust, whatever I have here under the under bust line, which is 2 inches, on this upper bust, either you go up by half inch or 1 inch, or you come down by half inch. It depends on how you want to cover your cleavage at the upper bust. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is the 2 inches I have under the under bust, I'm going to mark half an inch here, and then I mark 1.5 inch on the other side. Towards the side, I mark 1.5 inch. Towards the center front, I mark half an inch. To avoid gaping on the upper bust, I'm going to be marking 0.25 on this side and also 0.25 on the side. So let me do just that. So the next thing to do is to connect these dart legs up to this point here, and then connect from here to here with a curved roller, as you can see me doing. And then from this point, I'll connect to meet the bust line, and then on this side, I'll connect to meet the bust line. From this line to the bust point, and also from this line to this bust point. Sorry, I mark it down. So the next thing to do is to mark the space in between our bust points. That's our caps. So on this chest line, I'll be coming down by half an inch and then go in by half an inch and then mark a straight line like so. Now our dart is ready. So the next thing to do is to create the cap. That's the cup here. So to do that, you go to your armhole curve here. Whatever you have from this line to this point, you divide it by 2. I have 2 divided by 2 is 1 inch. So I mark 1 inch here. So now we are going to create our cap. But I'm going to use another color so that you can understand it better. So from this point here, I'm going to draw a curved line to the underbust. That's for our cap. And then from this point, you come down by half an inch and then you draw a new chest line outwardly like this. So now you take your curve ruler. From this point here, you connect up to the underbust because our side is fuller than our center front. That's why we extend this cap to this point here. Now we are creating the neck line. To do that, I'll be connecting from that leg here to this point here with my curve ruler. And then from that leg here, I will connect to this point. So you connect it to join this point here. You can use your free hand. Our cap is taking shape. The next thing we are going to do now is to impute our horizontal measurements. So coming to the bust line, whatever you have for the bust measurement on this chest line is the same thing you will impute on the bust line. So the bust 43 divided by 4 is 7.75. I mark it here. And then 2.5 inches, that intake here that you added to this chest line, you are also going to add it on the bust line. Now to the underbust circumference is 37 inches divided by 4 is 9.25. So on the underbust, I will impute 9.25. So whatever you have for the dart here, which is 2 inches, you will add it here. And then on the waistline, the waist circumference is 38 inches divided by 4 is 9.5. So I impute 9.5 here on the waistline. And then the 2 inches, that intake, you add it here. And then on the length of the corset, you will be imputing your hip measurement divided by 4. The hip is 44 inches divided by 4 is 11 inches plus 2 inches, that intake. And then you mark the same thing on the hem line. So the next thing to do is to add 2 inches sewing allowance. So I add 2 inches on the bust, on the underbust, on the waistline, on the length line. So the next thing to do is to connect the lines. Lastly, we are adding half an inch on the shoulder slope for the joining allowance. So now I'll label the caps. This is center 1 and the side 2. So we are no more concentrating on this circle here. So our cap is the green line. So I will mark arrow like this. I know that this one goes here like so that you not make mistake. And also blend the sharp points. Yes. So this is our yoke. So if you want to use the yoke, that's it. So let me label this thing. This is the upper, so that when I cut it, not to misplace the caps. So here is the down part. So let's get right to the back pattern. So this is the back pattern, and as you can see, I connect the lines exactly. I use the front panel to mark the line. This is the chest line, this is the bust line, this is the waistline, and then this is the length and then the allowance. This broken line, if you can remember, in the front we came down half an inch here and then drew this line. So at the back we have to come down half an inch so that we can get exactly the same measurements when joining the pieces. So let's grab the back pattern. So we need our shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 8.5. We come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope because our shoulders are not straight, as you know. I mark 1.5 inch zipper allowance on the side. So as it's corset, you can choose to put loops at the back or you fix zip. But I mark zipper allowance so that it will not confuse. And then we mark 3 inches by 1.5 inch for the back neckline. That's 3 inches for the width and then 1.5 inches for the depth. Then I'll connect it with my curve ruler like so. Then on this neck point, I draw a line to meet the 1 inch for the shoulder slope like so. So now to create the back armhole, we need to create our armhole line first. So by dividing my bust by 6 and adding 1.5 inch, I got 8.5. So this is the 8.5 on the chest line. So on the chest line, I'll measure 8.5 here so that I can get a straight line. So I connect the armhole line. So for the back armhole, you don't come in, there's no need to come in half an inch. You'll find the midpoint of this line, which is 4.2, is 8.5, which is 4.2 for the midpoint. Then you connect it to the armhole. So to get the perfect armhole curve, you need to impute your bust measurement divided by 4. My bust is 43, divided by 4 is 10.75. So I will impute 10.75 here. Then I'll create the armhole curve. It's good to use armhole curve because if you use your hand free, sometimes you don't get the curve accurate. So this is the armhole. So the next thing to do is to impute that line. To do that, you need your nipple to nipple measurement, which is 9 inches divided by 2 is 4.5 inches. So on this chest line, I mark 4.5 inches. On the bust line, I mark 4.5 inches. On the waistline, the back pattern, we don't need our under bust line. So from the chest line, the bust line, and then the waistline, and then the length for the top, which also serves as our hip line. So I mark 4.5 all the way down and roll a straight line. But to roll the line, I'll be coming down 1 inch from this chest line. And then I connect from this 1 inch to a hemline. And I'll be taking 1 inch for the dart for the back. And I will divide it on both sides, half an inch, half an inch. So I will mark it on the waistline, half an inch, half an inch. And then on the hip line here, that's the length, I'll come up by 1 inch. Then connect from this point with my straight ruler, connect the 4 points together to create the back dart. So this is our back dart. So the next thing to do is to impute our horizontal measurement. The bust divided by 4, which I already put here. And then I'll add 2 inches sewing allowance as I did here on the front pattern. I added 2 inches for the sewing allowance. Yes. So I add 2 inches for the sewing allowance here. On the chest line and on the bust line, I mark the same thing I mark here, 10.75, and then 2 inches for the sewing allowance. And then on the waist, I'll divide the waist by 4. The waist is 38 divided by 4 is 9.5. So I'll mark 9.5 here, plus 1 inch for that intake, which is 10.5, 9.5 for the waist circumference, and then 1 inch for the dart intake, which is 10.5, and then 2 inches for the sewing allowance. And on the hip line, which is the length of the top, I'll divide the hip measurement by 4. The hip is 44 divided by 4 is 11 inches, plus 2 inches sewing allowance. So the next thing to do is to connect the dots here on the side. Then I connect it all the way to the hemline. So this is our back. The back is very simple, and what I'm doing now is to eliminate the zipper bulging. And to do that, on the waist you go in by 1/2 inch, and then on the side, the center of the back panel, you also go in by 1/2 inch. Then you'll be connecting to meet the chest line, or you can take it a little bit up, and you also connect from here to meet the chest line. So let me do just that. So I'll be cutting it on the fabric, not on the pattern, so that you understand it better. So I forgot to label the lines. This is the chest line, or the upper bust line. This is the bust point. This is the waist line. This is the length line, and then this is the hem line. So the next thing to do is to add 1/2 inch on top of the shoulder slope for joining allowance. So now at the back of your back pattern, on this line, you can choose to leave it straight on the chest line, but in this case I will come down by 1/2 inch to create that U. You see, it gave it a little bit of style at the back, so I came down by 1/2 inch on this broken line. So this is our back pattern. Our back pattern is ready. This is the yoke. In case you want to use yoke, then you attach your yoke. If you don't want the yoke and you just want it the tube bustier or the striplet bustier, you just cut the yoke out. So this is our back panel. So the next thing to do is to cut it out. So this is the front pattern unfold, but the back pattern you cut 2 pieces because I used only 1 piece for the tutorial. So you cut 2 pieces of the back piece, and then you unfold the front piece. So the next thing to do is to cut it out. So I extended the zipper line to the hem line. Let's start with the back panel. I'm cutting the back panel, and the first thing I'll do is to cut the yoke out first. Now I cut the main. Before cutting the dart, you can choose to eliminate the bulging at the back by adding 0.25 here, then 0.25 here. Now this is the center back, and then the side back. Now this is the upper side. This is the down part. So this is the back 2 pieces, and then this is the yoke for the back. So if you don't want the yoke, you just take the yoke out and leave it as it is for the back. So if you are cutting it on the fabric, you add 1/2 inch to this side, 1/2 inch also to this side. We already have the sewing allowance down. You also add 1/2 inch here, and we also have the side allowance already. So next is to cut the front piece, but the first thing to do is to cut out the yoke. Now you carefully cut the cap out. So this is it. So this is our front panel and it's ready. So this is the yoke. If you want to add yoke to your bustier, you can add the yoke. If you don't want the yoke, you just want the tube top, you just cut and work on this down part. You see how beautiful it looks. This is the yoke, this is the calves, and then this is the bodice. So if you don't want the yoke, you take the yoke out. So if you are cutting it on fabric, you add half an inch here, half an inch here, and then half an inch on this side, half an inch on this side, and the upper part you add half an inch, half an inch. The side have allowance already. The down part also have allowance already. So our corset bustier pattern is ready. So if you find this tutorial helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share my videos. Please comment. I need your comments so that YouTube will recommend my videos. Like, share. I love you all. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video. Bye.